Good evening, Montreal. Welcome to the Suburban News Hour. Beryl Wiseman, editor-in-chief of the Suburban, with my colleagues Anthony Bonaparte, features editor, Mark Lidbetter, sports editor, and our Mike Cohen with everything you need to know about entertainment and society news. It was a big week for news. Pick up the Suburban. Injunctions issued to protecting Jewish institutions, a first in North America, protecting them from anti-Semitic mobs. We've got a take on the Just for Laughs Festival being cancelled. Tax protest against the AGLO proposed by Hampstead Mayor Jeremy Levy. Quebec's French quotas on streaming services. Finally, the school bus drivers ended their strike. We've got a new commander in West End Station 9. We've got an exclusive interview with him. And we got crime, particularly in St. Laurent. Murders, fatal stabbings. DDO's iconic Barbie barn is closing. So read all that in this week's Suburban. But we want to focus our main story, and with our special guest, on the Department of Youth Protection. Now, the Department of Youth Protection, commonly known as the DPG, has been an issue for us as a paper for over 10 years, since we backed Judge Andre Rufo's attempts to reform it. This is a system riddled with problems where, as everything else in Quebec, anonymous denunciations can have children taken away from a mother, put into horrible institutions. You heard about the problem at the Cartier institution with isolation cells. And we're very pleased to have with us Bridget Garceau. She's the M&A for Robert Baldwin in the West Island, who frankly is the first direct and passionate voice on this issue in a hell of a long time. Our Chelsea St. Pierre did a wonderful interview with her, and Bridget Garceau says youth protection protects itself, not children's rights. Couldn't be put better. Pleased to welcome Bridget Garceau, M&A for Robert Baldwin from Quebec City. How are you, Bridget?
Thank you, Beryl, for that introduction. Very well.
I'm not going to go to that phrase because I think we understand that in Quebec, all bureaucrats protect their departments. But let me get to the heart of the interview. We have a national director, supposedly, of youth protection, in Catherine LeMay, appointed now some 3 years ago. She's done nothing. What do you want to see as step one? What act by the Legault government could start to convince you and the public that they're serious about reforming the Department of Youth Protection? If you had one choice.
Well, one choice, I'm going to tell you right away what it is. And it was one of the main recommendations going back now a few years, back in 2021. And so we had the Laurent Commission report.
Which was meant to reform the system.
Yes, and it was about reforming the system, but it took 2 years. 2 years of interviewing 4,000 people, reading hundreds of memorandums, looking back at the evolution of the DPG, all of the legislation, over 40 years. And we get to, at the end of this report, 65 recommendations with like 250 other kinds of solutions, des pistes de solutions, as we say in French. And one of the main recommendations was the appointment, the nomination of a commissioner for the welfare and rights of children. This would be the creation of an independent institution who would really be the watchdog in terms of the overseer of youth protection. And of course, the protection and the promotion of children's rights. And we're talking about all children, not just children that are in youth protection.
And the power that this position would have would be to intervene and to improve.
Exactly. And also intervene before the courts on behalf of children, especially those whose rights are being, violated. And so in some provinces, they do have that sort, they're called advocates, defenders of children's rights. And so that was the idea behind the appointment, the nomination, that the commissioner would have responsibilities and powers that are currently being held by the Human Rights Commission and the Youth Commission, so the CDPDG, as we say in French. Listen, there's some huge problems with the CDPDG. I have advocated very strongly, and so have other attorneys. We're reviewing now this bill, and unfortunately, the government decided not to respect all of the recommendations that the Laurent Commission made with respect to the powers and responsibilities of this commissioner.
So this is the point I'm getting at. Is the government eliminating the recommendation to appoint this commissioner completely?
No.
Or just undercutting the power?
It's diluting and it's minimizing the responsibilities and the powers that the commissioner is going to have. And really, it's like at the heart. The heart of the powers is really to intervene in cases where you're seeing, by way of example, we have sexual assault in youth protection, in youth centers, and that are not being appropriately managed. I mean, some of these girls, they're 13, 14 years old. There's no psychological assessments. There's no follow-ups. They're closing the files and they're leaving them alone.
So when you...
it's abhorrent. I mean, there are so many rights of children that are being violated, and the DPG is just not doing its job.
So let me move forward just a bit, because we're up against the clock. When you say that the youth protection system protects itself and not children's rights, in all government departments in Quebec, unfortunately, we have this bureaucratic mentality: c'est ma job. It's my job. I'm going to protect my job. I'm going to give credible deniability to my boss. Would the first major step be getting this commissioner with independent authority to overrule some bureaucrats to stop the system from protecting itself and helping children? Would this be the first major step, empowering this position?
Yes.
And
the first major step would be to do that, but evidently it's going to take some time.
And what can it will take some time, but tell me, I want to end on this note, because I want to involve our audience, and I want to involve the tens of thousands and people who read and watch our website and look at these stories. What can the public, your public, and Pierre Fondollard do to help you? Should they write to the Premier? Should they write to their representatives and say, we want this in, we want an independent commissioner? Because we've covered so many stories, even in the West Island, of mothers losing children, of children being abused. Would public implication help?
Public implication is very important, because we need to demonstrate. I mean, one, it's incredible to see that there's I'm thinking of in French, l'entêtement.
Investigation.
There's a lack of political will. There's a lack of political will
isn't there always?
To do the right thing. And to do the right thing is to protect these children. And then when we see cases, and I'm just going to highlight two because they're egregious as far as I'm concerned. And the minister, one of them, he just found out about it. He's finding out about a situation, and now I'm going to talk about the isolation rooms at the Laval Center. And he confirmed this week that he just found out about it when the news broke in La Presse. Meanwhile, his sous-ministre, Madame Lemay, who you mentioned, she's the national director, has been she's been going to the youth center in Laval. She's been investigating. She's known about these isolation cells for many, many months. And the issues relating to those isolation cells that are only supposed to be used for exceptional measures. But now they're being used like, if you're disruptive at dinner, you're going into solitary confinement. I mean, that's what they are. They're like prison cells for children.
We read about it in the Cartier residence in Laval. Bridget Garceau, we wish you luck. We're going to be watching what you're doing in the PL 37 hearings. We're going to encourage editorially our readers, many of whom are in your constituency, to write the Premier and write anybody else they know in Quebec, because this has to get done, and at least let's take the first step of getting a commissioner, an independent commissioner with power, with clout, to cut through the bureaucracy. Bridget Garceau, M&A for Pierre Fondal, thank you very much.
Thank you, Beryl.
Our Joel Chiashu has come across a remarkable story. He'll tell us how he came upon it, but it seems we're having Canadian and Quebec teachers' unions funneling money to something called Education International in Gaza and expressing certain opinions that may surprise you. Joel, welcome. Good to hear you.
How are you? Good evening.
How did you get this story? How did it happen, and what are they doing?
Well, I came across a couple of disgruntled teachers. Imagine that.
Imagine that. That's a surprise.
Yeah, I've spoken to a few teachers who don't want to be identified for fear of professional recrimination. So the Canadian Teachers Federation had a good idea. They wanted to make a small donation in solidarity with teachers in Gaza, ostensibly for blankets, books, and toys for teachers and students. They made a donation of $3,000, which is not a whole lot from a federation representing tens of thousands of teachers, but it's doing it through its international affiliate, Education International, and it's asking its provincial members, including QPAT, the Quebec Provincial Association of Teachers, which represents about 8,000 teachers in Quebec, to kick in money as well. But there are questions being raised about the donations and the method of solicitation. Now, Education International identifies UNRWA as one of its close partners on the ground in Gaza.
Which most Western countries have defunded.
And as you know, UNRWA employed involvement in the October slaughter and kidnapping of Israelis, and years of documented issues raised about UNRWA's involvement with Hamas and mismanagement of the education system. Now, some teachers here on the ground are objecting to their union dues perhaps being funneled to UN workers, quote-unquote, on the ground, which could include kidnappers, rapists, and killers. And that's actually what they wrote to their union. Now, the Teachers Federation advised member organizations to not use the word Palestine when labeling their payments, because banks may be suspicious about financial transactions and transfers during times of war and conflict. But they assured that the money would get to where it goes through its established partners. Now, this fundraising appeal from the Canadian Teachers Federation also includes a link to a video. Now, this video is produced by the General Union of Palestinian Teachers, and it features stills and drone footage of destroyed buildings and adults and children speaking. And the leader of the General Union, who is known for publicly praising Hamas and Al-Aqsa Brigade leadership, has accused Israel of multiple Holocausts.
This is the fellow in Quebec.
No, this is a fellow in an undisclosed location. He's probably in Ramallah or in London.
But affiliated with Education International.
No, he's the leader, the president of the General Union of Palestinian Teachers, which is the recipient of the aid that's coming through Education International. Now, he's speaking on video about systemic targeting of schools, about teachers and children being martyred, and the Israeli plan to eliminate all life in Gaza. Now, that kind of video being disseminated by the Canadian Teachers Federation is upsetting to some teachers. We asked, especially they said this was decided while they were out walking picket lines with no compensation. Now, we asked the Canadian Teachers Federation about all of this, and all they would respond is that the money is going through legitimate affiliates on the ground. QPAT said the same thing, that the amount they're forking over is a token. Some teachers think the donation is effectively taking a side in the conflict, while QPAT said it's completely neutral, it's merely a humanitarian gesture, and they say all union locals were represented in the decision-making. That's interesting because a lot of teachers are saying that they had no idea about any of this, and they're only finding out about it now.
There seems to be, besides teacher discontent, there seems to be an interesting backstory to this and the methodology of how the money's raised and where it's going. And to all our listeners, please go to our website, take a look at Joel's first installment on this story, and look for next week for the full story. Joel Chiashu, thank you very much for your great work as always.
Do I have time for a teaser?
Tease away, quickly.
A story I'm working on, watch for next week or the week after, about a plan for an overnight warming shelter in Côte-de-Neige. What sounded like a great idea has had some near disastrous consequences. And I'm working on that. The plan was to help some very vulnerable people, but instead ended up spreading the pain beyond. And,
naturally.
We'll have more on that next week.
Look forward to it. Thanks very much, Joel Chiashu.
Thanks, Beryl.
always tax problems with the city of Montreal. We broke the story some time ago that 12% of island residents pay 38% of the expenses of the agglo. Those 12% are mostly in the demerged cities. Joel Goldenberg is with us to discuss Hampstead Mayor Jeremy Levy's challenge to the other municipalities. They're ready to do a tax withholding protest if all 16 get on board. Joel, welcome.
Hi.
How do you know how far this proposal has gone? Do you know how we know that Benny Masella has said all options are on the table? We know that Georges Burrell of Beaconsfield is suing the agglo for a more equitable pro rata. But Jeremy Levy was the first one to stand up and say, "Okay, you know what? We all got to work together." How are the other cities reacting to it?
Well, he revealed that this was this. He brought it up at a meeting last year. It wasn't previously, revealed. And he said, I've even asked the mayor.
And then he brought it up at council meeting.
Well, he was asked about it.
In response to a question, yes.
Right. I've asked mayors in the past, what about civil disobedience? And they all, in terms of these agglomeration rules and other things, and they said, the trusteeship issue. But he surprisingly brought it up last year. Like I said, first time it's being revealed, and the other mayors liked it. I don't know if they're going ahead with it. Some of them, were a little bit gun shy on it. Some of them were in favor, but maybe this revealing will push it some more. It's quite possible.
Well, in speaking with Jeremy and speaking with some lawyers, it's possible, but only if there's an action taken against the city. The judge allows a trust account to be set up into which all municipalities pay until the judgment is rendered.
Right.
So as Jeremy Levi said, as the Mayor Hampstead said, if one does it alone, they'll get a trusteeship right away, but not if they act as a group. Joel, you'll continue following the story because this is the first serious organized effort by all demerged cities to rectify an insane situation where demerged cities put 52% of their tax dollars to the center city, and the center city only uses 35% to 38% of that money for the essential services like police, fire, snow removal, which the demerged cities have no say in. So this is a story to watch. Thank you, Joel Goldenberg. This is Suburban News Hour. Let's take a look at traffic, and then we'll be back with my colleague Anthony Bodapart.